Marcus Thompson stood at the edge of the school parking lot, his military duffel bag slung over one shoulder. The familiar red brick building of Westfield High looked smaller than he remembered. 3 years fighting alien invaders across distant star systems had changed his perspective on many things. The teenagers streaming past him seemed so young, so carefree. They had no idea what lurked beyond their small world. At 17, Marcus had volunteered for the Terran Defense Force when the Zephyrian Empire first attacked Earth's outer colonies. Most recruits were older, but humanity desperately needed soldiers. The recruitment officer had looked at his fake ID and pretended not to notice. Now at 20, Marcus carried scars both visible and hidden. The war was over, humanity had won, but victory came at a terrible cost. Marcus Thompson? A familiar voice called out. He turned to see Mrs. Henderson, his former English teacher, approaching with wide eyes. She looked exactly the same. While he had grown 6 inches taller and gained 40 pounds of muscle, his face, once soft with youth, now carried the hard edges of someone who had seen too much. "I can't believe it's really you," she said, studying his face. "When you disappeared after the invasion began, we all assumed—" She trailed off, not wanting to voice what everyone had thought. "I joined the TDF," Marcus said simply. "I'm back to finish my education." Mrs. Henderson nodded, though her expression remained troubled. "Of course. Principal Morrison will want to see you. There are procedures for returning students, especially those who've been away for so long." As Marcus walked through the hallways, whispers followed in his wake. Students pointed and stared at the stranger who moved with the fluid precision of a trained killer. His civilian clothes couldn't hide the way he constantly scanned for threats, how his hand instinctively moved toward where his sidearm would normally rest. "Is that Marcus Thompson?" someone whispered. "I heard he ran away to join some kind of military thing. Look at those scars on his hands." Marcus ignored the chatter and made his way to the principal's office. Principal Morrison was a thin man who had always tried to project authority through his voice since his small stature failed to intimidate anyone. He looked up as Marcus entered, and his face paled slightly. "Mr. Thompson," Morrison said, gesturing to a chair, "this is quite unexpected. When you left 3 years ago without notice, we marked you as a dropout. Your return presents some complications." "I want to finish my education," Marcus replied, sitting down carefully. The chair seemed fragile beneath his frame. Morrison shuffled through some papers on his desk. "You understand you'll need to repeat your senior year. You've missed too much coursework to simply graduate. There are also questions about your legal status, given that you were underage when you left." "The Terran Defense Force has provided documentation," Marcus said, sliding a datapad across the desk. "Everything should be in order." As Morrison reviewed the files, his eyebrows climbed higher with each page. Marcus's military record was heavily classified, but what remained visible painted a picture of exceptional service. Multiple commendations, rapid promotion through the ranks, and a list of battles that read like a history of humanity's darkest hour. "This says you achieved the rank of lieutenant," Morrison said, looking up. "That's remarkable for someone your age." Marcus didn't respond. He had learned that civilians struggled to understand what war truly meant. They saw ranks and medals, not the friends he had lost or the choices he had been forced to make. "Well," Morrison continued, "we'll need to integrate you back into the student body. I'm assigning you to Ms. Rodriguez for academic assessment. She'll determine what credits you might be able to earn through testing." As Marcus left the office, he nearly collided with a group of students clustered around their lockers. They fell silent as he approached, their conversation about weekend parties and dating drama suddenly seeming trivial in his presence. "Excuse me," Marcus said quietly, trying to squeeze past one of the boys. Tall and athletic, with the confident swagger of a star quarterback, stepped into his path. "Hey, you're the guy everyone's talking about, right? The one who ran off to play soldier?" Marcus stopped, his jaw tightening. "I need to get to class." "I'm talking to you," the boy continued, puffing out his chest. "I'm Jake Morrison, captain of the football team. My dad's the principal here, so I pretty much run this place. We don't like troublemakers." The other students watched with anticipation. Jake Morrison had never backed down from a confrontation, and his status as both star athlete and principal's son made him effectively untouchable. But as Marcus turned to face him fully, something in his eyes made Jake take an involuntary step backward. "I'm not looking for trouble," Marcus said, his voice calm but carrying an undertone that made several nearby students shiver. Jake recovered quickly, not wanting to lose face in front of his friends. Good, then we understand each other. Just remember, this is my school. Don't think your little military adventure makes you special here. Marcus studied Jake for a long moment, noting the boy's stance, his breathing, the way his friends positioned themselves for support. In another life, this might have escalated into violence, but Marcus had fought real enemies, faced creatures that could tear through steel with their claws. A teenage bully seemed laughably insignificant. I'll remember, Marcus said finally, stepping around the group and continuing down the hallway. As he walked away, Marcus heard Jake's voice behind him, louder now for the benefit of the growing crowd. Yeah, you better remember. This isn't some alien planet. This is high school, and here I'm the one in charge. Marcus found his first classroom and slipped inside, hoping to blend into the background. But as 20 pairs of eyes turned toward him, he realized that blending in might be impossible. The teacher, a young woman who looked barely older than some of her students, stammered through an introduction that made it clear she had no idea how to handle his presence. Throughout the class, Marcus tried to focus on the lesson about literary themes, but his mind kept wandering to his squad mates who would never see Earth again. While his classmates debated the symbolism in a novel, Marcus remembered the very real horror of watching friends die in the cold vacuum of space. When the bell rang, Marcus gathered his things and prepared for the next challenge. 6 more classes to endure. Then he could retreat to the small apartment the VA had arranged for him. As he stepped into the crowded hallway, he wondered if coming back had been a mistake. But humanity had fought for the right to live normal lives, to attend school, and worry about trivial things. If he couldn't adapt to peace, then what had all the sacrifice been for? Marcus shouldered his backpack and moved toward his next class, determined to find his place in this strange new battlefield called high school. The cafeteria buzzed with the usual chaos of lunch period when Marcus entered carrying his tray. Every conversation seemed to pause as students noticed him scanning the room with the methodical precision of someone trained to identify threats. He had hoped to find an empty table in a corner, but Jake Morrison's voice boomed across the space. Look who decided to join us normal people for lunch, Jake called out from the center table where the popular crowd gathered. How's the food compared to military rations, soldier boy? Marcus ignored the comment and found a table near the windows. The plastic chair creaked under his weight as he sat down, methodically arranging his lunch. Around him, conversations resumed but remained hushed, with frequent glances in his direction. Is it true you killed aliens? A small freshman asked, appearing suddenly beside his table with wide, curious eyes. Marcus looked up from his sandwich. The kid couldn't have been more than 14, all nervous energy and hero worship. War isn't something to be excited about, Marcus said quietly. But you're a hero, right? You saved Earth. Before Marcus could respond, Jake Morrison materialized beside the freshman, flanked by 2 other football players. Get lost, kid. Can't you see the war hero wants to eat his lunch in peace? The freshman scurried away, leaving Marcus alone with the 3 larger boys. Jake slid uninvited into the seat across from him, while his friends positioned themselves on either side. So, Jake said, leaning back with artificial confidence, tell us about this big war. Must have been something fighting little green men in space. The Zephyrians weren't little or green, Marcus replied, taking another bite of his sandwich. Oh, excuse me. Jake laughed. Big scary monsters then. I bet it was just like the movies, right? Lots of explosions and dramatic speeches about saving humanity. Marcus set down his sandwich and looked directly at Jake. The quarterback's smirk faltered slightly under that steady gaze. 73 billion people died in the war. Human colonies that had existed for centuries were reduced to glass. I watched my best friend get torn in half by a Zephyrian shock trooper because our ammunition ran out. The table fell silent. Jake's friends shifted uncomfortably, suddenly finding their shoes very interesting. Jake stammered. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to what? Marcus asked. Make fun of the deaths of billions of people? Mock the sacrifice of soldiers who will never come home? Jake's face flushed red. I wasn't mocking anyone. I just think maybe you're being a little dramatic about... Marcus stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. The entire cafeteria went quiet, sensing the sudden tension. Jake looked up at him, and for the first time his confidence completely cracked. Sit down, Marcus said quietly, but there was something in his voice that made it clear this wasn't a suggestion. Jake remained frozen, caught between his need to maintain his reputation and the growing certainty that he was in real danger. His friends had already backed away from the table. "I said sit down," Marcus repeated, still in that same quiet tone. Jake slowly sank back into his chair, his face pale. Marcus leaned forward, placing his hands on the table. Students at nearby tables strained to hear his words. "I came back to finish my education and try to have a normal life," Marcus said. "I'm not looking for trouble. I just want to go to class, do my homework, and pretend that teenagers arguing about prom dates is the biggest problem in the world. But if you keep pushing me, if you keep trying to prove whatever point you think you're making, then we're going to have a problem." Jake began. "You were just trying to establish dominance," Marcus cut him off. "I understand. You're the alpha here, the big fish in this small pond. But Jake, I've seen real monsters. I've fought enemies that would use your spine as a toothpick. So when you try to intimidate me, all I see is a scared little boy playing games he doesn't understand." The silence in the cafeteria was complete now. Teachers at the far end of the room were starting to notice the confrontation, beginning to move in their direction. Marcus straightened up, his voice returning to normal volume. "I don't want to be your enemy. I don't want to fight you or anyone else. I just want to finish school and move on with my life. Can we manage that?" Jake nodded rapidly, unable to find his voice. His reputation as the untouchable king of Westfield High had just evaporated in front of the entire student body. "Good," Marcus said, picking up his tray. "Enjoy your lunch." As he walked away, the cafeteria remained silent until he disappeared through the doors. Then conversations exploded across the room as everyone tried to process what they had just witnessed. Marcus found refuge in the library, where Mrs. Chen, the elderly librarian, looked up from her computer with a knowing smile. "Rough first day back?" "Something like that," Marcus replied, settling into a chair in the quiet study section. Mrs. Chen had been at the school for 30 years and had seen every type of student drama imaginable. "Jake Morrison giving you trouble?" Marcus looked up, surprised by her directness. "How did you—" "Word travels fast in a school this size," she said, walking over to his table. "Jake's been the unofficial king around here since middle school. His father's position as principal and his success on the football field made him think he was untouchable." Past tense. "I didn't want to cause problems," Marcus said. "Sometimes problems need to be caused," Mrs. Chen replied. "Jake's been bullying younger students for years. His father always looked the other way, and the other teachers were afraid to challenge the star athlete. Maybe having someone around who isn't impressed by high school politics will be good for this place." She paused, studying Marcus with the sharp eyes of someone who had taught teenagers for decades. "You're not really 20, are you?" Marcus stiffened. Your records say you're 20. But I've been watching teenagers long enough to know the difference between someone who's lived 20 years and someone who's experienced 20 years of life. The war aged you in ways that birthdays never could. Marcus didn't deny it. There was no point in lying to someone who could read people as well as Mrs. Chen obviously could. "How old were you when you enlisted?" she asked gently. 14, Marcus admitted. "I lied about my age, forged documents." The recruiter knew, but humanity needed soldiers. They were taking anyone who could hold a weapon. Mrs. Chen nodded sadly. "Child soldiers. We became the thing we always said we'd never allow, didn't we?" "We did what we had to do to survive," Marcus replied. "Yes, I suppose you did. But that doesn't make it right. And it doesn't mean you should carry that burden alone." Before Marcus could respond, the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch period. Students began filing into the library for study hall, many of them sneaking glances at Marcus as they found their seats. "Your next class is chemistry with Mr. Patterson," Mrs. Chen said, consulting a schedule. "He's a good man. Former Navy, so he understands military service. He won't ask uncomfortable questions." As Marcus gathered his things, Mrs. Chen placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Marcus, if you ever need someone to talk to, someone who won't judge or try to fix you, you know where to find me." Marcus nodded, feeling something loosen in his chest. For the first time since returning to Earth, someone had looked at him and seen not a hero or a freak, but simply a young person who had been forced to grow up too fast. Walking to his next class, Marcus noticed the change in how other students looked at him. The whispered comments were still there, but the tone had shifted. Jake Morrison was nowhere to be seen, and his usual followers seemed lost without their leader's confidence to guide them. Marcus realized that his confrontation with Jake had established more than just his unwillingness to be bullied. It had shown the entire school that their old social hierarchies meant nothing to someone who had faced real challenges. He wasn't trying to take Jake's place as the alpha, but his very presence had destabilized the careful balance of high school politics. As he entered the chemistry classroom, Marcus wondered if this was how it would always be. Would he forever be the outsider, the reminder of a war most people wanted to forget? Or could he somehow find a way to bridge the gap between the soldier he had been and the student he was trying to become? 3 weeks into his return to high school, Marcus had settled into a routine that felt almost normal. He arrived early, attended his classes, and left as soon as the final bell rang. Most students had stopped staring, though whispered conversations still followed him through the hallways. Jake Morrison had been avoiding him entirely, which suited Marcus perfectly. The fragile peace shattered on a Tuesday morning when the emergency alarm began blaring throughout the school. Marcus was in advanced physics when the sharp, piercing sound cut through Mr. Peterson's lecture about quantum mechanics. Every student looked around in confusion, but Marcus was already on his feet, his body responding to years of combat conditioning. "Everyone remain calm," Mr. Peterson announced, though his own voice carried a tremor. "This is probably just a drill. Please line up," and the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. Through the windows, Marcus could see strange shapes moving across the sky. His blood ran cold as he recognized the distinctive silhouettes of Zephyrian scout ships. "That's impossible," he whispered, pressing against the window for a better view. The Zephyrian Empire had surrendered 8 months ago. Their homeworld was under Terran occupation, their fleet scattered or destroyed. But the ships outside were definitely Zephyrian, their organic curves and bioluminescent panels unmistakable to anyone who had fought them. Principal Morrison's voice crackled over the intercom, barely controlled panic bleeding through his attempt at authority. "All students and staff are to proceed to the gymnasium immediately. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." The other students began filing toward the door in the orderly manner they had practiced during countless drills. But Marcus grabbed Mr. Peterson's arm as the teacher tried to join them. "We can't go to the gym," Marcus said urgently. "It's a trap. The Zephyrians use large gatherings as target practice. We need to scatter, find multiple hiding places." Mr. Peterson stared at him in confusion. "Marcus, you're frightening the other students. The administration knows what's best." "The administration has never fought aliens," Marcus cut him off. A distant explosion shook the building, causing dust to rain from the ceiling tiles. "Those ships outside are Zephyrian scouts. If they're here, it means a larger force isn't far behind." Through the classroom windows, Marcus could see the scouts landing in the school parking lot. Tall insectoid figures began emerging from the ships, their chitinous armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. They moved with the efficient precision of a military unit, not raiders or pirates. "Oh my God," whispered Sarah Chen, one of the few students still in the classroom. She was pressed against the window, her face pale with terror. "What are those things?" "Zephyrian shock troopers," Marcus replied, his training kicking in as he assessed their equipment and formation. "Probably a reconnaissance unit. The question is what they're looking for." More explosions echoed from the direction of the gymnasium. Marcus cursed under his breath. Principal Morrison had just led the entire school population into exactly the kind of target the Zephyrians preferred. "Mr. Peterson, we need to get these kids out of here," Marcus said, turning to the remaining 6 students who had been too slow to leave with the main group. "The basement utility tunnels connect to the storm drains. If we can reach them—" "I can't abandon the rest of the school," Mr. Peterson protested. "We have procedures for emergencies." "Your procedures don't account for alien invasion," Marcus snapped. Another explosion, closer this time, sent books tumbling from the shelves. "I'm going to get these students to safety. You can come with us or you can follow your procedures, but I won't let kids die because of bureaucracy." The decision was taken out of their hands when the classroom door exploded inward. A Zephyrian shock trooper filled the doorway, its mandibles clicking as it scanned the room. The creature stood nearly 7 feet tall, its forearms ending in claws that could tear through steel. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed along its carapace, indicating active hunting mode. The students screamed and pressed themselves against the far wall. Mr. Peterson stood frozen, his mind unable to process the reality of the situation. But Marcus moved without hesitation, grabbing a desk and hurling it at the alien with enough force to stagger it backward. "Run!" Marcus shouted, pushing the students toward the windows. "Sarah, break the glass."
"Everyone else, get ready to jump!"
Sarah grabbed a chair and smashed it through the window while Marcus kept the Zephyrian occupied. The creature recovered quickly from the desk impact and lunged at him with all four arms extended. Marcus rolled aside, letting the alien's momentum carry it past him, then grabbed a chemistry flask from the demonstration table. "Hydrochloric acid," he muttered, hurling the container at the creature's face. The acid splashed across the Zephyrian's compound eyes, causing it to rear back in pain and fury. But Marcus knew the damage was temporary. These things were designed to fight in hostile environments. "Out the window now," he ordered, helping the last student climb through the broken glass. Mr. Peterson had finally unfrozen and was climbing through behind his students. Marcus took one last look at the writhing alien, then followed them outside. They found themselves on the first floor, with a 10-foot drop to the grass below. "Form a line," Marcus commanded, slipping into the tone of voice that had once led soldiers into battle. "I'll lower each of you down, then drop myself." One by one, the students dangled from the window ledge before dropping the remaining few feet to the ground. Marcus went last, hitting the grass just as more Zephyrian troops rounded the corner of the building. "This way," he whispered, leading the group toward a maintenance shed 50 yards away. They made it just as energy weapons began firing, the distinctive purple beams of Zephyrian pulse rifles scorching the ground where they had been standing moments before. Inside the cramped shed, 7 terrified teenagers and 1 teacher huddled around Marcus as he tried to formulate a plan. Through the small window, they could see Zephyrian troops moving in coordinated sweeps across the school grounds. "Why are they here?" Sarah whispered. "I thought the war was over." Marcus peered out the window, studying the aliens' movement patterns. "These aren't regular troops," he realized. "Look at their armor markings. Those are House Vextar colors. They were supposedly wiped out during the Battle of Kepler Station." "What does that mean?" Mr. Peterson asked. "It means someone lied to us," Marcus replied grimly. "House Vextar never surrendered. They've been hiding, regrouping, and now they're here for something specific." An explosion from the direction of the gymnasium sent flames shooting into the sky. Marcus felt sick thinking about all the students and teachers who had followed evacuation protocols designed for human emergencies.
"Not alien invasion. We need to contact the authorities," Mr. Peterson said, pulling out his cell phone.
"The military, the police, no signal." Marcus cut him off, showing his own dead phone. "They're jamming communications. Standard Zephyrian invasion protocol." Timothy Walsh, a quiet sophomore who rarely spoke in class, suddenly grabbed Marcus's arm. "My dad works at the Air Force Base 20 miles from here. If we could reach him..." "The base is probably their primary target," Marcus said. "But you're thinking in the right direction. We need to reach someone with military training, someone who understands what we're dealing with." Through the window, Marcus watched as more Zephyrian ships descended from the clouds. This wasn't a scouting mission. It was a full-scale assault on something important in this area. "There's something they want here," Marcus murmured, his tactical training analyzing the situation, something important enough to risk exposing their survival. "The question is what?" Sarah Chen looked at him with desperate hope in her eyes. "You'll protect us, right? You know how to fight them." Marcus met her gaze, seeing the faith and terror warring in her expression. 6 other students and their teacher were looking at him the same way, waiting for him to be the soldier they needed him to be. "Yes," he said simply. "I'll protect you. But we need to be smart about this. These aren't the desperate, starving Zephyrians we fought during the war. These ones are organized, well-equipped, and they have a plan." Outside, the sounds of battle continued. Screams echoed from the school building, punctuated by the harsh clicking language of the Zephyrians and the whine of energy weapons. Marcus realized that his greatest challenge wasn't going to be fighting aliens. It was going to be keeping 7 civilians alive while figuring out why House Vextar had emerged from hiding to attack a small-town high school. Marcus pressed his eye to the maintenance shed's grimy window, watching Zephyrian patrols sweep through the school courtyard. The aliens moved with purpose, not the random destruction he had expected. They were searching for something specific, checking every building methodically. "They're not here for a massacre," he whispered to Mr. Peterson. "This is a retrieval operation." Behind them, the 6 students huddled together in the cramped space, trying to stay quiet despite their terror. Sarah Chen had taken charge of keeping the younger students calm, while Timothy Walsh worked on his dead phone, hoping to somehow get a signal through the Zephyrian jamming. Retrieval of what? Mr. Peterson asked quietly. Before Marcus could answer, his enhanced hearing picked up the distinctive click chirp of Zephyrian battle language. A patrol was approaching their hiding spot. He held up a hand for absolute silence, then carefully moved to position himself between the aliens and the civilians. Through a crack in the shed's wall, Marcus could see 3 Zephyrian shock troopers moving past, their weapon-enhanced arms sweeping back and forth as they scanned for threats. One of them paused directly outside the shed, its compound eyes reflecting the afternoon sunlight. Marcus slowly reached for the fire axe mounted on the shed wall, his muscles coiled for action. If the alien discovered them, he would have perhaps 2 seconds to act before it could alert the others. The Zephyrian tilted its triangular head, mandibles twitching as it processed some scent or sound. Behind Marcus, one of the younger students was breathing too rapidly, on the edge of hyperventilation. The alien took a step toward the shed, then another explosion echoed from the far side of the school campus, and the patrol leader chirped an order. The 3 aliens immediately changed direction, moving toward the source of the disturbance at a rapid pace. Marcus waited until they were completely out of sight before allowing himself to breathe normally again. "That was too close," he murmured. "Marcus," Sarah whispered urgently. "Look at this." She was pointing at Timothy's phone, which was displaying a strange symbol on its cracked screen despite having no signal bars. The symbol was geometric, almost crystalline in design, and it pulsed with a soft blue light. "That's not from any app," Timothy said, staring at his device in confusion. "It just appeared a few minutes ago." Marcus felt ice form in his stomach as he recognized the symbol. "Everyone turn off your phones now." "What? Why?" Mr. Peterson asked. "That's a Zephyrian tracking beacon," Marcus explained as the students scrambled to power down their devices. "They're using our own technology against us. The phones are broadcasting our locations." Sarah's face went pale. "How many people in the school do you think had their phones on when this started?" "Everyone," Marcus replied grimly, "which explains how they're finding students so efficiently." Through the window, he could see smoke rising from multiple points across the campus. The aliens weren't just randomly destroying buildings. They were following the phone signals, systematically eliminating any groups of survivors. "We need to move," Marcus decided. "This shed won't be safe much longer." "Timothy, you said your father works at the Air Force Base?" "Yes, but does he have any personal vehicles on base? Something not connected to the main communication grid?" Timothy thought for a moment. "He has an old motorcycle in his private garage. Why?" "Because we need to reach someone who can coordinate a military response. The Zephyrians are jamming all electronic communications, but they might not expect an analog approach." Mr. Peterson looked confused. "Analog approach?" "Sometimes the old ways work best," Marcus explained. "Timothy, how far is your father's house from here?" "About 2 miles through the residential area," Marcus nodded. "We can make it if we're careful. But first we need to understand what the Zephyrians are really after." He crept back to the window and studied the alien search patterns. The troops were concentrating their efforts around the science building, particularly the upper floors where the advanced physics and chemistry labs were located. "Mr. Peterson," Marcus said slowly, "what kind of research projects does the school have? Anything that might interest alien invaders?" "We're just a high school," the teacher replied. "Basic experiments, nothing that would—" He stopped, his expression changing. "Wait, there's Dr. Martinez's project in the advanced physics lab." "What project?" "She's been working with the university on some kind of quantum research. They brought in special equipment last month, very hush-hush. Dr. Martinez said it was related to her doctoral thesis." Marcus felt pieces clicking together in his mind. Quantum research. That could explain it. The Zephyrians never developed quantum technology. Their entire civilization is based on bioengineering. If they could steal human quantum research, they could revolutionize their military capabilities. Mr. Peterson finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. Sarah looked between them. "So they're not here to kill us all? They just want to steal some science project? Don't underestimate how dangerous that makes this," Marcus warned. "If House Vextar gets their hands on quantum technology, they could restart the war with a significant advantage. Quantum computers could break our encryption. Quantum sensors could detect our stealth ships. Quantum weapons could... He trailed off, not wanting to frighten the students further. Could what? Timothy pressed. Could glass entire planets from orbit, Marcus said quietly. The shed fell silent except for the distant sounds of the alien search operation. Marcus could see the weight of responsibility settling on the students' faces as they realized the broader implications of their situation. So what do we do? Sarah asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, running through tactical options in his mind. We have two objectives, he said finally. First, we need to get you all to safety. Second, we need to prevent the Zephyrians from obtaining that quantum research. How can we stop them? Mr. Peterson asked. We're just teachers and students. I'm not just a student, Marcus reminded him. I'm a trained soldier who knows their tactics. And sometimes being underestimated is an advantage. He moved back to the window, studying the patterns of the alien patrols. They're searching methodically, but they're not expecting resistance from civilians. That gives us an opening. What kind of opening? Timothy asked. Marcus turned to face the group and they could see the soldier emerging in his expression. We're going to split into two groups. Mr. Peterson will take 5 of you to Timothy's house and try to contact the authorities. Sarah and I will go to the science building. Absolutely not, Mr. Peterson protested. I won't let you take a student into danger. Sarah was the top student in my advanced physics class last year, Marcus replied. She knows Dr. Martinez's work better than anyone else here. If the quantum research can't be moved safely, we might need to destroy it. Sarah's eyes widened. You want me to help you blow up the school? I want you to help me save Earth, Marcus corrected. The quantum research is what they came for. If we can deny them that objective, this entire operation becomes pointless. But the other students and teachers, Mr. Peterson said, the ones in the gymnasium, Marcus's expression darkened. We'll do what we can for them, but our priority has to be the bigger picture. If House Vextar gets quantum technology, every human in the galaxy becomes their potential victim. Through the window, they could see more Zephyrian ships landing near the science building. Time was running out. Everyone needs to decide now, Marcus said. Stay here and hope the aliens don't find us or split up and try to accomplish something meaningful. One by one, the students nodded their agreement. Even in their terror, they understood the stakes. All right, Marcus said, checking his watch. Mr. Peterson's group leaves first. Take the drainage tunnels under the athletic field. Timothy, lead them to your father's house and get word to the military. Tell them House Vextar is attempting to steal quantum research from Westfield High. What about you and Sarah? Mr. Peterson asked. Marcus looked toward the science building, now crawling with alien troops. We're going to stop them. Marcus and Sarah waited in the maintenance shed until Mr. Peterson's group had disappeared into the drainage tunnels. Through the grimy window, Marcus could see Zephyrian troops establishing a perimeter around the science building, while others worked to extract equipment from the upper floors. Are you sure about this? Sarah whispered, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her backpack. Marcus checked the fire axe he had taken from the shed wall, testing its weight and balance. No, but I'm sure about what happens if we don't try. They slipped out of the shed during a gap between patrols, moving low and fast across the open ground toward the science building. Marcus had studied the alien positions for 20 minutes, memorizing their patrol routes and timing. The Zephyrians were disciplined, but they followed predictable patterns. The building's first floor was clear, the aliens having moved their operation to Dr. Martinez's lab on the 3rd floor. Marcus and Sarah climbed the emergency stairs slowly, pausing at each landing to listen for movement above. The quantum computer is in room 312, Sarah whispered as they reached the 3rd floor landing. But Dr. Martinez always said the real breakthrough was in her theoretical work, not the hardware. What kind of theoretical work? Marcus asked, pressing his ear to the stairwell door. Something about quantum entanglement across galactic distances. She claimed she had solved the communication delay problem that limits long-range space operations. Marcus felt his blood chill. Instant communication across interstellar distances would give House Vextar an overwhelming tactical advantage. They could coordinate attacks across the entire galaxy in real time, turning their scattered remnants into a unified force overnight. We have to destroy everything, he said firmly. Hardware, research notes, computer files, all of it. Through the door's small window, Marcus could see two Zephyrian technicians working in the hallway. Unlike the shock troopers, these aliens were smaller and more delicate, their bioluminescent patterns indicating they were from the scientist caste. They brought their best people, Marcus noted. This isn't a grab-and-run operation. They're trying to understand the research before they take it. Sarah pointed to a maintenance panel in the stairwell wall. The building's fire suppression system runs through here. If we could overload it with something corrosive. Marcus smiled grimly. You're thinking like a soldier. What do you need? The chemistry storage room is down the hall from Dr. Martinez's lab. There should be concentrated acids, maybe some reactive metals. If I can create the right mixture, how long do you need? Sarah thought for a moment. 10 minutes to gather materials, 5 minutes to set it up. But someone needs to keep the aliens busy. Marcus hefted the fire axe. Leave that to me. They waited for the Zephyrian technicians to disappear into one of the labs, then slipped into the hallway. Sarah headed toward the chemistry storage while Marcus positioned himself near room 312, where he could see several aliens working around sophisticated quantum computing equipment. Through the open doorway, Marcus watched the Zephyrians examining Dr. Martinez's work with obvious excitement. Their mandibles clicked rapidly in their scientific dialect as they pored over equations written on whiteboards and downloaded data from computer terminals. One of the aliens, distinguished by more complex bioluminescent patterns, seemed to be their lead scientist. It was manipulating a holographic display that showed quantum field equations Marcus didn't recognize. Whatever Dr. Martinez had discovered, the Zephyrians understood its significance immediately. Marcus checked his watch. Sarah needed 8 more minutes. The lead scientist suddenly straightened, its attention focused on something outside Marcus's view. It chirped a sharp command, and the other technicians began working faster, loading equipment onto anti-gravity platforms. They were preparing to leave. Sarah was out of time. Marcus made his decision. He stepped into the doorway of room 312, fire axe raised, and spoke in perfect Zephyrian military dialect. House Vextar greets the day with cowardice and theft. The effect was immediate. Every alien in the room spun toward him, their bioluminescent patterns shifting to aggressive configurations. The lead scientist hissed something that needed no translation. You understand human speech, Marcus continued, switching back to English. Good. Then you'll understand when I tell you that this ends here. The lead scientist clicked a response, and Marcus was surprised when it spoke in accented but clear English. Young human warrior, we know of your kind from the war. You fight bravely but think too simply. This research will serve the greater good of galactic civilization. Whose civilization? Marcus asked, edging closer to the quantum computer array. The billions you killed during the war? Necessary sacrifices for evolutionary progress, the alien replied without emotion. Your species showed potential, which is why some were allowed to survive. This quantum research proves that potential, and you want to steal it. We want to perfect it. Human understanding of quantum mechanics is crude but promising. We can refine your primitive theories into something truly useful. Marcus noticed Sarah slip past the doorway behind the aliens, heading for the fire suppression controls. He needed to keep their attention focused on him for just a few more minutes. You know what I learned fighting your kind? Marcus said conversationally. You're not as smart as you think you are. The lead scientist's patterns flared brighter. Explain. You see the equipment, the equations, the computer files, but you're missing the most important part of Dr. Martinez's research. Which is? Marcus smiled coldly. She's still alive, and human scientists don't trust anyone, especially not each other. The real breakthrough isn't in this room. The alien's mandibles twitched with uncertainty. You are lying, am I? Check the computer files. Look at the dates. Everything here is weeks old. Dr. Martinez was working on something new, something she kept separate from the school systems. Behind the aliens, Marcus could see Sarah's silhouette near the wall panel. She held up 3 fingers, then 2, then 1. Where is this additional research? The lead scientist demanded. Safe from aliens, Marcus replied. The fire suppression system activated with a loud hiss, but instead of water or foam, concentrated hydrofluoric acid began spraying from the ceiling nozzles. The Zephyrian technicians shrieked and scattered as the acid began eating through their bioarmor and the room's equipment alike. Marcus dove behind a overturned table as the aliens opened fire with their bioelectric weapons. Energy bolts scorched the air where he had been standing. But the acid spray made accurate aiming impossible. The quantum computer array sparked and smoked as the acid ate through its delicate circuits. Whiteboards dissolved, taking Dr. Martinez's equations with them. Computer terminals sparked and died in cascading electrical failures. The research. The lead scientist screamed in its own language, trying desperately to save something from the destruction. But it was too late. Years of theoretical work and millions of dollars in equipment dissolved in minutes under Sarah's chemical assault. The aliens retreated from the room, their bio-armor smoking where the acid had touched it. Marcus found Sarah in the hallway, both of them coughing from the chemical fumes. "We need to get out of here," she gasped. They ran for the stairwell as angry Zephyrian voices echoed through the building. Behind them, alarm sounds indicated that the aliens were discovering the full extent of the damage. "Did we get it all?" Sarah asked as they descended the stairs two at a time. "Most of it," Marcus replied. "But there's still Dr. Martinez herself. If she's alive, the Zephyrians will try to capture her." They reached the ground floor just as the first Zephyrian shock troopers came thundering up the main stairwell. Marcus led Sarah toward a side exit, but stopped when he heard a familiar voice calling for help. Through a classroom window, he could see Dr. Martinez herself, trapped in her office by two Zephyrian soldiers. The middle-aged physicist was backing against her desk as the aliens advanced, their weapons powered but not yet fired. They want her alive, Marcus realized. She's more valuable than her research. Sarah grabbed his arm. "Marcus, we can't save everyone. You said so yourself." Marcus looked at the woman who had unknowingly created a weapon that could restart the galactic war. Then he looked at Sarah, the student who had just helped him destroy years of scientific progress to protect humanity. "Sometimes," he said, raising the fire axe, "you have to try anyway." Marcus studied the two Zephyrian soldiers through Dr. Martinez's office window. They were holding position rather than advancing, clearly under orders to capture the physicist alive. Dr. Martinez stood pressed against her desk, her face pale but determined. "I can't let you do this alone," Sarah whispered, pulling a heavy chemistry textbook from her backpack. "Sarah, these aren't lab specimens. They're trained killers. So are you," she replied firmly, "and I'm not leaving Dr. Martinez to be tortured for information." Marcus felt a surge of pride mixed with terror for this brave teenager who refused to abandon her teacher. "All right, but we do this smart. I'll go through the main door and get their attention. You circle around and help Dr. Martinez escape through the back. What about you? I'll figure something out." Marcus moved to the office door, noting how the two aliens positioned themselves. They were good soldiers, maintaining overlapping fields of fire while keeping escape routes covered. But they were also overconfident, assuming a single human posed no real threat. He took a deep breath and kicked the door open with enough force to send it crashing into the wall. Both Zephyrians spun toward him, their bioelectric weapons powering up with distinctive whining sounds. "Remember me?" Marcus asked pleasantly, stepping into the room with the fire axe held loosely at his side. The nearer alien clicked something in its language, and Marcus caught enough words to understand the meaning. "Human soldier, dangerous." "Very dangerous," Marcus agreed. And getting more irritated by the minute, Dr. Martinez stared at him in shock. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" "The school's been evacuated." "Not all of it," Marcus replied, his eyes never leaving the aliens. "Dr. Martinez, these creatures want your quantum research. They're willing to kill everyone in the school to get it. That's impossible. My work is purely theoretical. It has no military applications." The lead Zephyrian made a sound that might have been laughter. When it spoke, its English was heavily accented but clear. "Human ignorance is remarkable. Your quantum entanglement theories could revolutionize interstellar warfare." Dr. Martinez's face went white as she realized the implications. Instantaneous communication across galactic distances. Coordinated military operations without time delays. "Precisely," the alien confirmed. "Your primitive species stumbled onto something magnificent. We will perfect your crude theories." "Over my dead body," Dr. Martinez said, her scientific excitement replaced by grim determination. "That can be arranged if necessary," the alien replied. "But living subjects provide more useful information." Marcus had been slowly shifting position during this conversation, angling himself so both aliens couldn't target him simultaneously. Now he was close enough to act. "Dr. Martinez," he said quietly, "when I move, get behind your desk." The physicist nodded slightly, her eyes wide but focused. Behind the aliens, Marcus caught a glimpse of Sarah's face at the back window. Chemistry textbook raised and ready. Marcus exploded into motion, bringing the fire axe around in a devastating arc toward the nearest alien. The creature tried to dodge, but human reflexes had improved during 3 years of constant warfare. The axe blade bit deep into its thorax, sending bioelectric fluid spraying across the office walls. The second alien spun to fire at Marcus, but Sarah's chemistry textbook crashed through the back window at the same moment, striking the creature in the head and disrupting its aim. Energy bolts scorched the ceiling as the alien staggered. Marcus yanked his axe free and dove toward the second alien. But this one was ready for him. 4 arms grabbed him simultaneously, lifting him off his feet with terrifying strength. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed angrily along its carapace as mandibles clicked mere inches from Marcus's face. Dr. Martinez had taken cover behind her desk, but she wasn't cowering. She was frantically typing on her computer, trying to delete files before the aliens could access them. "Sarah, help her," Marcus shouted, struggling against the alien's grip. Sarah had climbed through the broken window and was moving toward Dr. Martinez when more Zephyrian soldiers appeared in the doorway. The lead scientist from the 3rd floor pushed past them, its bioarmor still smoking from the acid attack. "Enough," it shrieked in accented English. "The human research must be preserved." The alien holding Marcus relaxed its grip slightly, and Marcus took the opportunity to drive his knee upward into what he hoped was a vulnerable spot. The creature doubled over, releasing him, and Marcus rolled away just as energy bolts filled the space where he had been. "Dr. Martinez, how much of your research exists outside the school?" Marcus called out while scrambling for cover behind an overturned filing cabinet. "Most of it," she replied, still frantically typing. "I back up everything to secure servers at the university. But they'll never find those without the access codes." The lead scientist's patterns flared brighter. "Then you will provide those codes." "I'll die first," Dr. Martinez said defiantly. "That would be counterproductive," the alien replied. "But perhaps your students would be more motivating." It gestured to its soldiers, who immediately moved to surround Sarah. She backed against the wall, still clutching her chemistry textbook like a weapon. "Leave her alone," Marcus snarled, rising from behind the filing cabinet. "Then convince your teacher to cooperate," the scientist said. "The research will serve the greater good of galactic civilization." "Whose greater good?" Dr. Martinez demanded. "You killed billions of humans during the war." "Necessary evolutionary pressure," the alien replied without emotion. "Your species needed culling to reach its potential. The survivors are stronger, more innovative. This quantum research proves our methods were correct." Marcus felt rage building in his chest. "You're talking about genocide like it was a science experiment." "All advancement requires sacrifice. Your primitive understanding of ethics prevents optimal outcomes." Sarah suddenly stepped forward, her face set with determination. "Dr. Martinez, give them the codes." Everyone in the room stared at her in shock. "Sarah, what are you doing?" Marcus asked. She looked directly at him, and he saw something in her eyes that made him pause. "Dr. Martinez should give them exactly what they're asking for," she repeated carefully. "The access codes to her backup research." Dr. Martinez studied her student's face, and understanding slowly dawned. "Of course," she said, turning back to her computer. "I'll give them everything they want." The lead scientist moved closer, its attention focused entirely on the computer screen as Dr. Martinez began typing. Marcus realized what Sarah had figured out, but kept his expression neutral. Dr. Martinez was a scientist who had spent her career protecting her research from corporate espionage and academic theft. She would never keep critical work accessible through simple passwords. The real research was probably buried under multiple layers of security that would trigger massive data purges if accessed incorrectly. "There," Dr. Martinez said, stepping away from the computer. "The primary access codes to all my quantum research." The alien scientist moved eagerly to the terminal and began entering commands. Marcus tensed, ready to act when the inevitable happened. "Excellent," the scientist murmured as files began appearing on the screen. "Your quantum entanglement calculations are more sophisticated than we anticipated." Then alarms began blaring from the computer. Red warning messages flashed across the screen in rapid succession. The alien's bioluminescent patterns shifted to confused patterns as it realized what was happening. "Security breach detected," the computer announced in a pleasant female voice. "Unauthorized access attempt. Initiating data purge protocol. All files will be permanently deleted in 60 seconds. And stop it! The alien scientist shrieked at Dr. Martinez. I can't, she replied with satisfaction. Once the purge starts, it can't be stopped. Everything is going to be deleted, including the backup servers. The alien raised its weapon toward Dr. Martinez, but Marcus was already moving. With Sarah's distraction and the scientist's momentary panic, he had the opening he needed to end this fight once and for all. Marcus launched himself across the office as the alien scientist raised its weapon toward Dr. Martinez. The fire axe caught the creature in its weapon arm, severing biomechanical components in a spray of luminescent fluid. The alien shrieked and staggered backward, clutching its damaged limb. Behind them, Dr. Martinez's computer continued its cheerful countdown. 30 seconds until data purge completion. The remaining Zephyrian soldiers opened fire, forcing Marcus to dive behind the heavy oak desk. Energy bolts scorched the wood, filling the air with smoke and the acrid smell of burning organic matter. Sarah, stay down. Marcus shouted, but when he looked for her, she was gone. Looking for your student? The lead scientist hissed, its damaged arm sparking with bioelectric discharge. My soldiers have her. Perhaps watching her interrogation will change your teacher's mind about cooperation. Dr. Martinez looked up from where she crouched behind her filing cabinet. The data purge can't be stopped. Even if I wanted to help you, it's too late. Then she dies for nothing, the alien snarled. Through the smoke, Marcus could see two soldiers dragging Sarah toward the door. She wasn't fighting them, which worried him more than if she had been screaming. Sarah Chen was too smart to give up without a plan. 15 seconds until data purge completion, the computer announced. Marcus made his decision. He stood up from behind the desk, hands raised in apparent surrender. Wait, let me talk to Dr. Martinez. Maybe there's something we can work out. The alien scientist's patterns flickered with suspicious hope. You have 10 seconds before the purge finishes. Dr. Martinez, Marcus said clearly, remember what you taught us about chemical chain reactions? How sometimes adding the right catalyst at the right moment can change everything. Dr. Martinez looked confused for a moment, then her eyes widened as she understood. During their brief time together in advanced chemistry, she had taught him about explosive compounds that could be triggered by simple electrical discharge. 5 seconds until data purge completion, the computer announced. Now, Marcus shouted. Dr. Martinez grabbed the emergency defibrillator from the office's first aid kit and discharged it directly into the chemical residue that Sarah had left on the windowsill when she climbed through. The mixture of acids from her chemistry textbook, combined with metal filings from the window frame and electrical current, created exactly the kind of catalytic explosion Dr. Martinez had described in class. The blast shattered every window in the office and sent the Zephyrian soldiers flying. Marcus grabbed Dr. Martinez and pulled her toward the door as debris rained down around them. Data purge complete, the computer announced calmly. All files have been permanently deleted. In the hallway, Marcus found Sarah sitting against the wall, rubbing her wrists where the aliens had grabbed her. She looked up as he approached, grinning despite the chaos around them. I dropped my chemistry textbook on purpose, she explained. I figured if we needed a distraction, Dr. Martinez would know what to do with the residue. Dr. Martinez knelt beside her student, checking for injuries. Sarah, that was incredibly dangerous. And absolutely brilliant. Did it work? Sarah asked. Is the research really gone? Every bit of it, Dr. Martinez confirmed. The quantum entanglement formulas, the communication protocols, even my preliminary weapon designs. Marcus stared at her. Weapon designs? Dr. Martinez looked embarrassed. I'm not naive, Marcus. I knew my research had military applications. I've been developing countermeasures in case someone tried to weaponize my work. Those files were deleted too. From outside the building, they could hear the distinctive whine of Zephyrian ships powering up for departure. Marcus moved to a broken window and saw alien troops withdrawing to their landing craft in obvious frustration. They're leaving, he reported. Without Dr. Martinez and without the research, this mission is a failure. As if to confirm his words, the lead scientist appeared in the office doorway, supported by two soldiers. Its bioluminescent patterns were dim and erratic, indicating severe injury. This changes nothing, it hissed at them.
House Vextar will find other sources of quantum technology.
Other human scientists, other research facilities. Maybe, Marcus replied, helping Dr. Martinez and Sarah to their feet. But they'll find us ready for them. Humans learn from their mistakes, do they? the alien asked mockingly. You still gather your young in vulnerable groups. You still trust your primitive communication systems. You still believe your crude weapons can protect you from superior beings. Marcus looked around the destroyed office, at the brave teacher who had sacrificed years of work to protect humanity, at the student who had risked her life to help strangers. Then he looked back at the alien scientist. You're right, he said. We do all those things. We gather together because we care about each other. We trust our systems because we built them together. We fight with whatever weapons we have because we're defending something worth protecting. The alien's patterns flickered with what might have been confusion. You see those as weaknesses, Marcus continued, but they're the reasons you lost the war, and they're the reasons you'll lose the next one too. The alien scientist made no reply, allowing its soldiers to escort it away. Through the windows, they watched the Zephyrian ships lift off and disappear into the clouds, leaving behind only scorched earth and the acrid smell of alien technology. In the distance, Marcus could hear human sirens approaching. Timothy's group had successfully reached the authorities, and military response was finally arriving. Dr. Martinez sat down heavily in her ruined office, surrounded by the wreckage of her life's work. Years of research, she murmured. Gone in minutes. But Earth is safe, Sarah pointed out, sitting beside her teacher. And you're still alive. You can start over, develop new theories. Better theories, Dr. Martinez agreed, looking up at Marcus. Theories that account for the fact that we're not alone in the universe, that we need to be ready for anything. Marcus nodded, then walked to the window to watch for the approaching military vehicles. His reflection in the broken glass showed a young man who looked older than his years, marked by experiences no teenager should have to carry. Behind him, he could hear Sarah and Dr. Martinez discussing plans for new research, new ways to protect humanity from future threats. Their voices carried the excitement of scientists facing an interesting challenge, rather than the fear of victims contemplating their narrow escape. Outside, the first military helicopters were landing in the school parking lot, disgorging soldiers who moved with the efficient precision Marcus remembered from his service days. The war might be over, but Earth's defenders remained vigilant. As he watched the soldiers secure the area, Marcus realized that his own war was far from finished. House Vextar was still out there, along with other threats humanity hadn't yet imagined. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and Earth would need protectors who understood both the price of peace and the cost of war. He turned back to Sarah and Dr. Martinez, who were already sketching equations on the back of a damaged notebook. In their determination to rebuild and improve, Marcus saw the true strength of humanity, not in their weapons or technology, but in their refusal to surrender hope. Come on, he said, offering them both a hand up. Let's go home. We've got work to do. As they walked out of the ruined school together, Marcus knew that this was only the beginning. The teen soldier who had returned to face a high school nightmare had become something more. He was a guardian, a protector of the future that people like Sarah and Dr. Martinez would build. The war was over, but the peace was just beginning, and Marcus Thompson intended to make sure it lasted.